Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, recording here today on Facebook Live. I am so excited to bring to you today a really special guest, Haley Stewart. Haley, welcome to A Seeking Heart.
Thank you so much for having me on.
This is so much fun. I've been a fangirl for a really long time, so getting to meet you today is kind of really exciting.
I've been really looking forward to it.
We're going to be talking today about Haley's new book, The Grace of Enough, out from Ave Maria Press. And you can find this book and all of Haley's writing over, I'm going to say it wrong, but I'm going to try, Carrots for Michaelmas.
Perfect.
But if you're looking it up, it looks like Michaelmas. Haley, for anybody who's new to you and to your ministry and your wonderful blog, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm a mom of 4. My oldest is 9, and I just had a new precious baby.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much. And my husband, I married my high school sweetheart, Daniel, and he is a beekeeper on his free time, and then he works at a local nonprofit as his full-time job. And we live in Central Texas and homeschool. And I do writing and podcasting and a little bit of speaking here and there. And yeah, that's us.
We have a few things in common. As I was reading your book, I got kind of excited. I married my husband. We were both juniors. I was a junior in college as well. And we're high school sweethearts. Though it wasn't 2006. It wasn't even 2000. It wasn't even 1996. But isn't it amazing how you can find that person? Like, what a blessing that is to find.
Yeah, it wasn't, I never planned to marry so young. It just kind of worked out that way. But it's been really fun you kind of grow up together when you get married so young. And sometimes I have people say, like, my son or daughter is thinking about getting married, but they're really young. And do you recommend that? And I'm always like, I don't know. Like, it worked for me. I'm not like giving it. You never know. So, but yeah, it's been really fun.
I always tell people that I raised him up and I trained him exactly the way I wanted him, and like he's perfectly molded as I desired. So like, there's no way I would never leave him. I wouldn't let him leave because I don't want to like try to remold somebody. So and also I was a homeschool mom for many years. I fought it. And then when I finally gave in, I really loved it. How do you like homeschooling?
I really like it. Daniel and I both are really involved because he actually has a weird schedule where he works a lot of evenings. So he's during our homeschool day, which is really nice. And I think that's been new just in the past 12 months or so. And I think it's making homeschooling a lot more fun for me to not be the only one, because it gets really exhausting. But I do enjoy it. I was homeschooled 3rd through 8th grade, which I think is like the prime years to be homeschooled, so you don't have to go to middle school.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I know who went to middle school said, like, I loved it. Great time in my life. So I appreciated that my parents homeschooled me during those years. So we're never, we sometimes think about different options of schooling, but this is really what works for us right now. We like having lots of time together and like being able to just pick up and go on a road trip or something without having a school schedule.
I loved that the best. Like just planning your vacations when things weren't busy. Like you could go, we had the opportunity to go to Disneyland. My aunt lived there, so Disney World. But we were able to go when it wasn't like everybody on vacation, and it was nice. And I think some of the moms I know have like this love-hate relationship with homeschooling. But what I really loved the best about it, and I know your book kind of touches on this again. We're talking with Haley Stewart, and her book is The Grace of Enough, out from Ave Maria Press, was that family time. Like I really feel like we were closer as a family because we had so much time together. People are like, oh, you're going to spend all that time together and you're going to hate each other. And it's like, no, I had completely the opposite effect. I think we grew closer as a family because of our time together. And I know you talk a little bit about family time, and one of the reasons that you picked up your whole life and moved was to grow closer as a family. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, we were living in Florida. My husband had a normal 8 to 5 job and was needing to work a lot of overtime. We were having trouble making ends meet. It was just a very stressful, busy time of life. And we decided we kind of needed to regroup and restructure how we wanted our family life. So we sold our house and got rid of most of our stuff and moved to Texas to do a year-long internship on a sustainable agriculture farm out there. So we lived in a itty-bitty apartment, 650 square feet, and there are no flushing toilets on the farm. It was very primitive. And my husband did an internship, so he was working in the same space where we were living, and we got to be together for 3 meals a day. And it was really, I think it just really kind of kickstarted this new season for us and helped us figure out these different priorities and how we could make what was very important to us happen, even after leaving this internship and no longer living on the farm. And so that family time really, I think it really transformed our lives. Just eating those meals together, you know, sitting across the table from each other, getting to reconnect with Daniel during the day. As the mom who was doing most of the caring for the kids, it was huge for my mental health because it wasn't just me all day, because that is really exhausting. And I was just posting on Instagram today that I snuck off for an hour and a half to do some writing and catch up on email at a coffee shop. And, you know, the kids stayed with Daniel. I nursed the baby. She fell asleep and I jumped in the van. And having a little bit of alone time because, you know, your partner in crime is taking over, that really helps your mental health. And so I feel like part of what made that season in Florida so difficult is there were no breaks during the day to be, you know, with another adult and be working on it together. So yeah, we're trying to draw from what we learned on the farm to bring it into our life now that we're in the city again.
It's that balance. And I think some moms have a hard time, excuse me while we get a little reverb here, making that time for themselves. I think that sometimes they feel guilty that they want to take a few minutes away from the kids, from the home, and just take a drive or get a cup of coffee or go to the library or something like that. And so I'm really excited to hear you say, like, this is something I need, and to have that support to
Absolutely. And I think that when I was a young mom, I felt, like you said, guilty. Like, if I need time away from my kids, is that because I don't love them enough? You know, I'm not a good enough mom that I don't want to be around them 24 hours. And like thinking back, it's like, that's crazy. But that's what was going on in my subconscious. I felt guilty about wanting that time away and needing that. And so I think that I try to tell other young moms who are trying to figure out this balance that it kind of takes a while, takes a few times around the sun to figure out what works for you as a mom. You know, like what do I need? It's going to be different from my friends because I am not my friends. I'm me. And just figuring out what works. And I have friends who really would not enjoy homeschooling. That just would not jive with their personality or their kids' personality or the way their family structured. It just wouldn't work. And that's fine. You know, like figuring out what is important to me, our family, what works for us, what works for our different personalities and temperaments and talents and all of those things. Those things matter, but it can take a while to get it worked out, to figure out what does work for me.
And to not feel guilty about it. My daughter, so I homeschooled my 2 boys, not originally, but eventually. And then my daughter is adopted from China, and she is profoundly deaf. And after a few years of trying to homeschool her, I realized I don't have the talents, I don't have the education, and quite honestly, I don't have the patience to teach her in this new way that I had to learn. And so it was time to send her off to school and to allow myself to say, okay, it doesn't make me less of a parent because I couldn't do it. It was like, as you're saying, knowing your limits, knowing your gifts and your talents. And this is what she needed. And she's so happy there. And you know what? I'm happy too now. I am not, you know, I'm not stressed and overwhelmed by trying to do something I couldn't do. And the Lord blessed that time by making me very busy, very busy. And I love that you also had that meals together. My husband is at least supper time we have to have together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really builds a great family bond.
Yeah, I think it's so important, but so difficult to do the way that everyone's work schedule is set up and extracurriculars. And, it is so easy for everybody to go in a bunch of different directions. And it really requires a lot of intentionality to push against that and figure out, okay, what's the balance here? Maybe I do want my kids to go do some extracurriculars, not just at home all the time, but how can we do that and still have dinner together? And it's really tricky. It can be really hard.
It really can be. And we can be so, I want to say hi to Mary. Mary, thank you for joining Haley and I today. I'm talking with Haley Stewart, and we're looking at her new book, The Grace of Enough, out from Ave Maria Press. And you can find it at Ave Maria Press, Amazon, and of course on Haley's website, Carrots for Michaelmas. I think I got it right again.
So good.
My listeners know that my command of the English language is not the best. So Haley, I also, as I was reading your book, which I thoroughly enjoyed, just so many nuggets to take from it. Again, the family time thing just made me think of a quote that I just heard some woman say the other day at her. She was feeding her children, and she said the days, and the kids were being a little rambunctious, and an older woman said, "These days go quick," and she said, "The days are long, but the years are short."
Mm-hmm.
That's so profound, so profound. But we can get very wrapped up in the day to day, and the more stuff you have, I think the more wrapped up in the day to day you can get.
Mm-hmm.
One of the parts of your story that was very interesting to me was the moving part and the decluttering, the detachment for stuff. Can you speak a little bit to the challenge or the obstacles for
Sure.
that?
So we owned a home that it wasn't large, but it's just a little starter home, like 1,100 square feet maybe. And we had 3 little kids. And I didn't even think of myself as like a stuff person that was like really into stuff. But as we were going through getting ready to move, getting ready to sell the house, getting ready to move into a space almost half the size, half of our stuff at least had to go. And just realizing we've only lived in this house 5 years and we've accumulated so much stuff. And it's not like we're even on hoarding, like we're not going to be on hoarders or anything. Our house is hoarding, but there's just stuff everywhere in every cabinet and on every shelf. And going through all of it, realizing, oh, these are 4 boxes of stuff we brought from our last move that we haven't even used. We haven't even gone through it in 5 years. Just that sort of thing. And realizing, do we really need this single-use kitchen item? Do we need this lemon juicer? How often have we used this? Never. And so going through and getting rid of things that weren't real necessities, it was interesting because afterwards, there was never a time where we looked at each other and said, man, I really wish we had that such and such. It never happened. Like we never actually needed any of those things. And I would just been trying to keep them organized and cleaning them and dealing with the mental space of having them around for years. And so having so much less stuff made space in my mind, made space in our home, allowed us to live in a smaller space, even with 3 little ones. And so, yeah, that was very, very good for our family and detaching from things. And it's still something that we're dealing with all the time. It's not like, oh, we decluttered once and now we're done. And now we never have trouble having too much stuff, not at all. I just went through our daughter's dress up bin yesterday and was like, we've never used this wig. What is this? These just get strewn all over the floor and no one ever actually puts them on as dress ups. So I think that it's something that you have to keep doing and really thinking, okay, I want to purchase this thing. Should I go ahead and sleep on it? Do I really need that? And yeah, just trying to make it a practice to really think through your purchases and not accumulate too much stuff. And then when you do, okay, how can I get rid of this in a way that could benefit someone else? Who else could use this? How can I not just toss this? So those are some things that I think we'll all be doing forever, you know. It's not a one and done kind of thing.
That's going to be one of my questions. Like now that you've left the smaller place, and are you still staying minimal? And it sounds like, because I follow you on social media, it does sound like a part of you, of your family, has really learned a lot from that, and does kind of live a minimalized lifestyle. Like you said, thinking really through your purchases before you make them.
Mm-hmm. And, we own a home again, and there's 6 of us now, but it's not huge. It's like 1,200 square feet. And having a little home means that you can't have as much stuff. And it kind of helps you, well, just don't have room for that, and it's good. So we decided to buy a little house with a very big yard so that we could have a big garden and chickens and send our kids outside for a little bit to run around without us.
Great.
And I think that has been a good move for us.
That reminds me of one of your chapters. In fact, today is St. Francis's feast day, so I think this is a great day to be talking about this. The Canticle of the creatures and falling in love with God's creation. You wrote, how does one do that when they're like me, perhaps, who doesn't like outside? How important do you feel that it is for us to really look at the world God has created, and helping us really appreciate what we do have, and helping us, of course, your book is more about, it's not just about getting rid of our material stuff, it's really at the heart about getting closer to God. So how do you think that is for us to fall in love with his creation?
I think that slowing down to have the space to look around with wonder is something that really hit home for me when we were living on the farm, spending a lot of time outside, spending a lot of time together, and just seeing my kids outside noticing everything, noticing little bugs, and, oh, this flower is a different kind than this flower, and knowing all the different things that were growing in the garden, and just noticing God's creation. I think it's so easy to be so insulated from the world that God made. I struggle too with always looking at my phone. I'm looking down at my phone instead of looking at the sunset or whatever the case may be. And so making space in our lives where we stop and actually look with attendance at what God has made, I think that is huge for both our gratitude of the beauty that God has made and worshiping him by enjoying his world. And then I think when that part of our heart is there, we're much more motivated to try to take care of the resources of the earth he's made for other people, for God's creatures. And so I think it starts with having that wonder and gratitude as a sense of worship.
I love that your husband's a beekeeper. Raw honey is my favorite food in the entire world.
It's the best. It's the best thing. We always have bottles and bottles of honey. It's wonderful.
People laugh at all the creative ways. And I'm going just a little bee aside here, a little honey aside here. All the creative ways I have found to use honey. Now, I put it on my coconut milk ice cream, put it in my tea. I put it on my oatmeal. I put it on apples with peanut butter. If I can add honey to something, I'm on it. But we know that, do you guys have any really unique ways that you've come to use your honey?
A lot of times we'll use it in baking instead of sugar.
Oh, yeah.
And my husband has a really good cornbread recipe. My kids are allergic to gluten, so we've had to kind of be creative about our grains and things to go with soup. And so he makes really good gluten-free cornbread, and then one of my kids will mix up honey with butter, and we'll have honey butter. And then just your run-of-the-mill soup and cornbread is kind of fun because you got honey butter. So yeah.
That sounds delicious. I'm gluten-free too, so I'm looking for that recipe. That sounds delicious. We're talking today with Haley Stewart. Her new book is out from Ave Maria Press, The Grace of Enough, and with the subtitle, Pursuing Less and Living More in a Throwaway Culture. Now, Haley, why the book? Like everyone has, lots of people have experiences, and yours was incredible. This move to this, the internship and the smaller downsizing, but why a book? What was the catalyst behind that?
Yeah, well, I really wanted to explore how we can live a gospel focused life
Mm.
in the current culture. There's a lot of, I think there's such a pull on our hearts because the pendulum has swung like so far in this direction of the throwaway culture, which Pope Francis talks about this in Laudato Si, where it's not just that we're using up and consuming and wasting the resources of the earth, but also it affects our perspective and lens at how we view other people, that we're viewing them as things to be used instead of things to be loved. And so that is another layer of this throwaway attitude. And so when we decided to move to the farm, I was really surprised by the response to this news. I shared about it on my blog and just got so many messages and so many emails of people saying, we are so feeling the same way and we want to do something similar. And we're so jealous that you get to move to a farm for a year and that you're getting unstuck from this cycle that you don't want to be in right now. And so it seemed that this is something that a lot of other people were feeling. And also watching, that was more in Catholic and Christian culture, but in secular culture, I was just seeing how so many of these trends right now, I think, are often slightly misdirected or disordered attempts to bring back these things that we've kind of lost over the past few generations, like things like the slow food movement, where we're realizing, oh, yeah, I do feel more like a human being when I cook food with people and we sit down together and eat it and talk while we eat. Like this makes me feel good. And so kind of trying to look at what is the Christian foundation for why that makes us feel good. Why does that make us feel more human? Everything from that to kind of getting back to the heart of the generous love that the church calls us through NFP, or just caring for other people in a way that costs us. And minimalism is so big right now, and the life-changing magic of tidying up. Everybody goes, oh, I do feel better when my house isn't cluttered. Why is that? What is a Christian foundation for that? So kind of diving into that with some of the lessons we learned from our experience on the farm.
When you talk about why do I feel better when my house is in order? I remember I'm kind of a recovering hoarder, and we got a dumpster. Like it was this big deal. Like we got this big dumpster, and after we decluttered, we threw away, we gave away, we put away, and we kind of had this organization in our house. It really was a physical reaction to it. I felt calmer, and I also literally felt like my house was lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really had a physical effect. It was quite remarkable. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. That it's not just aesthetic, but it's like your mental space is better. For some reason, the video is draining my battery, so I'm going to grab my charger really, really fast.
Okay, no problem. We will just talk about where did I put the book? Here it is. I'll show it while Haley is getting her charger. This is the Grace of Yes. That's another great book from Ave Maria Press. And I knew I was going to say that because every time I start to say the grace of enough, the grace of yes comes to my mind. Thanks everybody for joining us today in the comments and on the live feed. It's nice to have you with us. And if you're listening, if you have any questions for Haley or myself, you can always go to Breadbox Media, Podbean, breadboxmedia.podbean.com. There it goes. And you can leave your comments there as well.
All right. Sorry, everybody, but now I won't just suddenly disappear.
That's very important. I was actually on an interview with Lisa Hendy and Sarah Reinhardt, and I had plugged it in, but what I didn't realize is that somebody had turned the
oh, no.
So I'm in the middle of, I'm sure I was saying something incredibly brilliant, and I just disappeared. Like, and we were live. It was back when Catholic Mom did those live hangouts. I'm like, oh. Luckily, my house is filled with computers, another thing that we hoard. I was able to get on very quickly. So the other thing, there's so many great themes from your book. Another one was this authentic freedom, and you talked about Saint Augustine saying that the real definition of freedom is the opportunity to choose the good. It's not like just do whatever you want. And I think that the Christian understanding of freedom is so beautiful. And if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think that culturally, we kind of believe that freedom is the opportunity to make a choice between a bunch of different options. That if we can choose between all these options, then we're free. Um, and so then even there's kind of this twisted consumerist idea that like going to the store and there being like 200 kinds of ice cream, American freedom, that's what we're experiencing here. And so St. Augustine says that real freedom, real Christian freedom, is the opportunity to choose the good. And so if we're not able to choose the good, we really aren't free. We're just enslaved to all of these other options. And so I always think about my experience with Lent. Whatever I give up at the beginning, I think there's no way I can do this. I can't get through 40 days without coffee, or I can't get through 40 days without Netflix. I'm just not going to be able to do it. And then at the end, you look back and go, I can live without binging Netflix after the kids go to bed every night. I can do that. And now I'm no longer trapped. I'm no longer enslaved to my Netflix binge because I have this different kind of authentic freedom. And so I think that when we think of giving things up, that doesn't sound like freedom to us from our American mindset. But sometimes giving up things to choose the good, that is authentic freedom.
I love that. I hadn't really seen it I hadn't really thought of it that way. And that was definitely one of the chapters that I lingered on a little bit longer. And the book is set up, just to let everybody know who doesn't yet have it in their paws, but they need to get it quickly. It's just so good. Is that you end each chapter with, I'll make sure I say it right, a path. No, is that right? Yes. A path to, no, there it is, Allison. Finding the grace of enough, tips for the simplifying your life. So each chapter ends, am I correct?
With some practical ideas that I tried to make applicable to a lot of different life situations, not just moms and not just young families, that would be helpful to single folks or older families or all of that.
And then in the back of the book, it speaks to my small group loving Bible babes. I've been in Bible study for over 10 years. And whenever I buy a book, and in the back, there's questions for me and my group to do. I'm a happy, happy girl. So this is fantastic. So there's reflection questions. Of course, people can do them on their own. Or as I said, I really love when women come together and share their hearts. I think it's a huge part of the journey for each of us. Talking today with Haley Stewart, The Grace of Enough. And yes, I said it right this time. While you were gone, I called it The Grace of Yes, which I knew I was going to do. Because I love Lisa Hendy, and that's also another Ave Maria Press book. So at least it was the same publisher. So Haley, we have just a few minutes left with you. First, what is one of the greatest lessons that you think you took away personally from your time in Texas?
I think that our time on the farm really helped shift my perspective from a mindset of productivity and efficiency and like quantifiable checklist. Okay, I've accomplished this today, this thing I can quantify, and that makes me feel good about my day, and tried to shift that to the unquantifiable but more valuable relationships and all of that. I think that I tend to have an achievement mindset. So it really makes my personality feel good to do, I did this and I I received this, going like that. And so trying to shift that to, okay, I'm just going to waste the next 30 minutes talking to my kids, like actually looking them in the eye and having a conversation, reading an extra story at bedtime instead of rushing off to check something off my list. And I'm not going to be able to quantify that. I'm not going to be able to check that off. It just is a shift in how I view what is the priority in my life and what is valuable. And I think also shifting from the kind of work mindset we had in Florida to living on the farm, it just kind of was a reboot for us. Shifting, okay, I don't need to be focusing all of my time on making money. I have a little bit of time right here, so I could work on something that I'm going to get paid for. Instead, you have to pay your bills, you have to pay your mortgage, you have to be responsible, but trying to shift out of that mindset of constantly trying to think of how to be productive and efficient. And so I think that has been the biggest change for me, and is something that I am daily having to work through. It's not like I spent my year on the farm and now I never have problems with that anymore. I have problems with that every day. But I think that shift has moved us in a different direction as a family.
And how did that affect your prayer life?
Yeah, I think that having more time as a family has made it more possible for us to pray together. And I grew up Protestant and had a somewhat individual prayer life. This is between me and Jesus.
Right.
And so then trying to bring that into our family life, like praying a family rosary, or over the breakfast table, my husband reads the daily readings.
Oh, I love that.
The kids listen as they are eating, and they're quiet because there's food in their mouths, and we can actually read the daily readings to them. And trying to make it to daily mass more as a family, it feels like, okay, we're in this project of trying to make it to heaven together. This is our goal here. And so I think having the motivation and the space to pursue that as a family community has been a big shift for my prayer life.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I'm talking again today with Haley Stewart, The Grace of Enough. And my last question for you today is, what do you hope that people who will pick up The Grace of Enough will walk away with? What is the hope, or this is the best way of saying it. What is the hope for people who are going to spend time with your beautiful book?
I think that my hope is that it'll make the idea of the throwaway culture something that people can then recognize in their perspective. Because for me, reading Laudato Si and kind of understanding this idea of the throwaway culture, I then realized, oh, I'm seeing this through the lens of the throwaway culture, and I'm seeing this through the lens of the throwaway culture. And noticing it in my mind is the first step to trying to shift it towards the gospel and to have the mind of Christ. And so then from there, I think I would really like for people to be able to see that there are small but very valuable things that they can do, no matter what their situation in life, that can move them towards a more gospel-centered life. I think a lot of times we get paralyzed because we think well, I can't move to a Catholic commune where we do morning and evening prayer all together and eat all of our food from the earth. We just think, well, I might as well just give up. I'm not even going to try to do a family rosary. I think that I often have that perspective, of just getting paralyzed because I can't do the big thing. And so I think that for most of us, it's the small things that are going to become habits that shift us towards holiness. And so I hope that it makes it feel like that pursuit is something that the reader can do, no matter what their situation in life is, and to give them some hope. Especially, I feel like it's kind of a dark time in the church right now. I feel like a lot of people are going through a dark night of the soul. And so I hope that it's something that gives people some hope.
Well, it certainly gave me a lot of hope. And I am so excited that I got to spend this time with you. I'm so excited I got to read the book, and I will continue to share the wisdom from it. Again, we've been spending this time with the cutest hair in the entire world. If you are listening to the podcast, you have to go to Carrots from Michaelmas, which is spelled like Michaelmas, .com, and you have to see Haley's awesome hair. It's just so cute. And her new book is The Grace of Enough, Pursuing Less and Living More in a Throwaway Culture, from Haley Stewart. Now, Haley, remind us how we can get a copy of this wonderful book.
You can go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com or Ave Maria Press, that's my publisher, their website. I know it's in a few Catholic bookstores here and there and a few like half-price books and things, but I don't know exactly where it is in store. So probably online is the best bet.
In any small Catholic bookstore, I don't know if you can always ask for them if you go and that's where you want to support them, you want to purchase it from them, you can ask for them to get it, and they can very easily contact Ave Maria Press and get the book. Haley, any parting thoughts or words you'd like to leave us with today?
Oh, goodness. I guess just that I think the idea of what small thing can you do in your life that can help you pursue the gospel better? And I think that all of us can think of one small thing that we can do even today, whether it's like taking the time to say hello to our next door neighbor and wave at them and have a short conversation, even though we're both busy, making that connection and seeing them as more than just the person who lives next door to you. Just that building of community, these tiny little things that I think make huge waves over time in our communities and in our lives.
Beautiful. The ripple effect. I love that. Thank you, Haley Stewart. Again, Haley Stewart, The Grace of Enough, available from Ave Maria Press. You've been listening to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras here on Breadbox Media. God bless.